Thursday welcome into lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream. We're with you 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. You can find us easily just typing in lcpioneers.com/live, or available on demand to watch on our YouTube page, youtube.com/lcpios. Appreciate everyone who's been checking that out. We're keeping you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and members from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community. Hi, everyone. I am Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark College. We're a member of the Northwest Conference, competing out of Portland, Oregon. Northwest Conference with other teams from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, with 19 intercollegiate athletic programs competing at the NCAA Division III level. So opportunity for our student athletes to compete nationwide with over 430 other institutions. Really is a unique opportunity. Plus, the opportunity to travel the world, have experiential liberal arts education through Lewis and Clark's overseas study program. That's a topic that continually comes up as we've had our conversations with different members, whether current student athletes or former student athletes at Lewis and Clark. We're excited to welcome in for the second time on the show Emily Hayes, the head coach of Lewis and Clark Volleyball, will join us for the second time in a few minutes. And we'll get kind of a feel for how things are going through the first month of fall, and also how you balance uncertainty. Right now, Northwest Conference has suspended competition through at least January 1st, 2021. And so, with all the moving marks that have happened with the NCAA and the Northwest Conference and everyone just trying to work in harmony, county governments, state governments, etc., how do you manage that with your student athletes? And then also look into the leadership. Her team is so involved in so many aspects, whether in the Lewis and Clark College community or even beyond. Excited to kind of get a feel for what her team does to better themselves through character and certainly through community efforts as well. She also has new assistant coaches too. I'm excited to talk to her about that in just a few moments. We want you to get involved with the program. You can do so by leaving a comment below in the Facebook Live comments, or you can also email us anytime, sports@lclark.edu, especially if you have a guest that you want to see on the show. We would certainly be eager to hear about that through our email, sports@lclark.edu. You can also reach us on Twitter and Instagram, LC Pioneers on both of those. And we're pretty excited about Sunday. I mentioned this a couple of times this week. We now have the date and time set. It'll be this Sunday at noon. We're going to have our PioStream watch back, and we recorded this with our women's soccer team. We're going to have more of these throughout the coming months, but we look back at women's soccer's win last October over Willamette in double overtime at Griswold Stadium. And it was in this middle of Coach Tercey and his team's really strong run that was one of the many outstanding performances by our fall athletics programs. And so we had a chance to watch back with two current student athletes, two alumni, and Coach Tercey, and we got finished editing that, I think, this morning. And we'll have two other student athletes also joining us on Sunday to chat live. I think we're going to put it out at least on Facebook Live and PioStream, but it may be on some other platforms as well. So be sure to check that out. Sunday at noon, it's PioStream Watchback, the first episode with women's soccer. And as I've mentioned too, our YouTube playlist continually updated with past shows. Yesterday, we had a lot of fun talking to Jalen Hodges, a sophomore with women's rowing. You can find that at youtube.com/lcpios. And our Pioneers of the Week continue to be updated on our website, lcpioneers.com. Sam Helms of baseball and Madeline Landerfelt from women's tennis, the most recently featured on our website, lcpioneers.com. And the last thing I do want to mention before we get to Coach Hayes is it is October 1st. If you can believe it or not, we're in the first day of October. And as such, Lewis and Clark hosting Homecoming at Home. In the absence of being able to welcome people back to our Portland campus, doing events with Homecoming at Home, and that will include middle of the month, October 13th through 16th. We're planning to talk to our four individual Lewis and Clark Athletics Hall of Fame members on this show. So excited to have a chance to talk to them about being inducted to the Hall of Fame prior to the in-person ceremony that we hope to have sometime this spring. So with all that said, let's bring in our guest for today, third-year head coach of Lewis and Clark Volleyball, and a chance to catch up with head coach Emily Hayes on the program. Coach Hayes, appreciate taking the time to join us on this Thursday, and looking forward to talking to you about some of those things I mentioned at the top, some of the things your team does to be involved in the community. Excited to talk about your new assistants, but I've been asking this question of everybody who joins the show as of late. The pandemic continues. We're getting back into school. You're trying to have practices and such. How are you doing so far through the first part of the fall semester?
Yeah. Hi, Ryan. I am doing awesome. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me back on the show. It's always great to be here and see, your other shows. They're great to kind of hear how everyone's doing from a student, staff, alumni perspective. So, um, I, yeah, I'm doing great, overwhelmed like everybody, but I really just think that, it's all about kind of who you surround yourself, especially with in this time, and whether it be the mentors that I am so lucky to have, or my team. We have this constant, theory and idea of gratitude in our program, and before we start anything as a team, we talk about what we're thankful for. And we've really bought into this perspective, especially in a time when there's so many challenges. There's just also so much to be thankful for.
Yeah, and I'm certainly grateful for your team and all of our programs at Lewis and Clark, and being able to stay in touch, as you talked about with mentors. Being able to reach out to people that maybe you haven't reached out to because it felt like there was such a time crunch. That's something that I've noticed over the course of the pandemic. Just being able to have more conversations, and this show is part of that too. So again, I certainly appreciate taking some time. Describe what the fall has been for you and your team so far, especially given the fact that, as I mentioned, right now the Northwest Conference has suspended play, but there were a lot of moving targets over the course of the summer. It's kind of hard to know anything other than that. What we're certain of is uncertainty. So how do you kind of navigate that too, kind of prepping your team also for a possible spring season?
Yeah, it's a whirlwind, that's for sure. I think with just having different rules or restrictions come up day by day, as you've heard on other shows. It's just an ever changing dynamic, with volleyball being an indoor sport, and so having to deal with all of those restrictions from the county, from the school. We're just constantly working through things, but as a team, and I don't mean to sound like a cliche in all of this, but we really just buy in as a program to that. Anything can be considered either a trial or an adventure, and we're committed to seeing this as one adventure that is going to make us stronger. And it was amazing yesterday after practice. One of my players, Emma Ellers, said it perfectly. She talked about how it has been amazing to be surrounded by this team, and grow so much through all of the adversity that has come our way. Some specific things. We are doing effluent testing here at Lewis and Clark, and so finding out, 5 minutes before a practice, that we're not going to have three of our student athletes, maybe because they live in a residence hall that is put on isolation, while they figure out what that effluent testing means. It's a lot of thinking on our feet, and thank goodness, being an athlete myself, like that's a very big kind of skill that you learn, is being adaptable and flexible in these times. But I remember Robin Holmes Sullivan was on the show a couple weeks ago, and she talked about planning fatigue, and that is definitely real. It's interesting to be planning for something, and then it just a 180 happens. So, challenges, but again, thankful to be in the gym and be able to see the growth that we are experiencing as a team in this unique time of being in the fall with no competition. Really taking advantage of this, kind of balance of sense of urgency, and also ability to take our time and improve in some individual skills.
Emily Hayes joining us on lcpioneers.com live, head coach of Lewis and Clark volleyball. And you described mentorship, and through career paths, I've talked about this as a broadcaster, and I see parallels with refereeing or officiating, and then coaching too. That mentorship component always seems so huge. So as it pertains to your experience as a volleyball coach, where does mentorship, where does this profession really show that mentorship is important?
Yeah, it's everything. The mentorship, again, like I said at the beginning, the people that we surround ourselves with is, so key in our mindset or perspective in all of this. And I am lucky to have some of the best mentors, in volleyball, much less in Division III, to have to be able to talk to every week, or send a quick text and get advice on how to handle a situation. I mean, I come with a complaint, right? Maybe I'm in a stressed out mindset, and I call one of them and know that I'm going to leave that conversation fired up and ready to tackle whatever challenge is going on. And so I think that volleyball is fairly unique. The sport of volleyball is very much kind of seeing it as one big team. We're in it to grow the game, and we all see the value in the sport itself and appreciate everything that the sport has to offer. And so as coaches and as mentors and mentees, we have the ability to do that with each other. I've had the opportunity to be a mentor through the AVCA this year, and it's so interesting to be on the flip side of that, right? As opposed to being the mentee. And it's just so much fun to be able to share experiences and ideas and things like that, school by school.
So then how does that trickle down perhaps to your student athletes too? Because you have freshmen coming in, so there's mentorship there from upperclassmen, and trying to have people who've been in the program, used to your system, used to your philosophies, mentoring them. Even alumni, I imagine, play some sort of role in that as student athletes get older or graduate. How do you translate some of that mentorship that you learn from the coaching perspective to your team?
Yeah, I definitely try to translate, the importance of mindset. I think that it is just crucial to how we tackle a day or a practice or failure or things like that. And so we talk a lot about mindset, and the team is very bought into that concept. It's crazy, going into being in my third season as the head coach, to see how much this culture has grown and been built by not only me but by these student athletes who have bought into everything that I am teaching through that vision. And this year was amazing to not have to do so many things from my perspective, because the upperclassmen had already taught the first years, right? We talk about little things like calling it the athletic training room instead of the training room, or being 15 minutes early wherever we're going, and all of these things I would go to tell the team or our three first years, and they were like, yeah, no, they already told us, like, we got it. And so it's just amazing to see this culture be so strong and so kind of holistic. They talk about how it doesn't feel like just a list of rules, right? But it feels like things that are implemented to help them grow as human beings. And they're just so proud of it that it makes me, even more proud to be the leader of that program.
You're watching lcpioneers.com live Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. You can find us easily typing in lcpioneers.com/live, and then all of our shows on demand on YouTube, youtube.com/lcpios. Third-year head volleyball coach Emily Hayes joining us today. And I mentioned that you have new assistants. It's part of a release that we recently put on our website with all of the new assistant coaches up until this point for the 2020-21 academic year. So introduce us to the pair of coaches who are helping your team this year.
Yeah, so incredibly excited about this staff. We just feel like it is incredibly balanced, and that there's such a common vision, but we bring so many different perspectives to it from a coaching staff point of view. And the student athletes appreciate being able to have someone that they can go to for a lot of different things, right? It's kind of, it is mentorship, right? How you have mentors that maybe you'll go to when you need different points of view. So we have Patrick returning to our team, who is fantastic. In all aspects, he is very much our tech whiz, and we'll make sure that he's filming from all different angles and able to break things down for the student athletes individually as well as a unit. He also does a great job of relaying those things to me and telling me what he's seeing from behind the camera. Then we have Kayao, who is coming to us most recently from Concordia, and he is in his, what is it now? 2 months that he's been here, has already made our program so much better. He has this perspective of growth and really sees the sport of volleyball as a vehicle for us to grow as human beings, and also as a sport to appreciate, like, in its own merit, right? Like, just really appreciating the game for what it is. And he is bringing that to the student athletes and just makes them excited about mastering a skill or improving in a certain area. And then we have Annika St. Nicholas, who is incredibly exciting. She was a 2019 grad. She was graduating in my first year as the head coach, and she was our libero. She then went on to graduate school and is working in the athletic department and pursuing her master's degree. And at the same time, she is working for us now as a volunteer assistant, and just brings such a sense of detail orientation and ability to relate to the student athletes, while also bringing her knowledge in, and from her playing days, and also from her variety of coaching experiences that she's had, whether it be coaching our camps, working in different departments. So really, really excited about the balance of this staff, and just so we can't wait to get in the competition mindset. We're already talking and brainstorming and writing on the back of napkins after practice, and you can tell there's just a really big fire in this entire program, from student athletes to staff, to get back competing and continue to improve like we have vastly over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's that continuation of mentorship too that you talked about with Ons coming back, and even just hearing her say something to the effect of, like, I didn't realize just how much knowledge I actually do have that is able to be passed along to your new student athletes, and even some of the existing ones coming back. That was really cool to hear that she's back and enjoying it, and that you have this group of four, including yourself. And I think that's reflected in the players too. Lewis and Clark Athletics follows this building champions philosophy, the idea of creating champions in the classroom, competition, character, and community. And when you look at volleyball and some of the leadership that it puts forward with student organizations and different parts around campus, I think it's reflected in that. Kind of describe, some of your student athletes and how they're involved in those leadership opportunities across campus.
Yeah, it's a great and important point, Ryan. And starting on court, I think we just have had so many people step up into leadership roles, within our program. And that's really cool to see. It's one of my favorite parts about coaching, actually, is seeing people come in as a first year and just trying to, like, get their grips about them, right? And they're in this new place and with brand new, people. And it's a crazy thing to do, and to see them grow into these fantastic leaders, and they possess that leadership ability all along, but it's just seeing them get comfortable doing it. We have players like Emma Ellers and Kelsey Parker, who have really stepped up this year, and our seniors McKenna and Kayla have always been just fantastic teammates, and really have a sense of ownership with this team, which is awesome. Kayla Valdez is the president of Hawaii Club here at Lewis and Clark, and takes that role very seriously, and has been a member of Hawaii Club, since she got here. But it's really cool to hear her talk about it. I know that you've had her on the show before. And then we have Izzy Artiaga, who is the SAC chair this year. And in my biased opinion, there's no one better for the job. She is such an overachiever, is so organized and passionate about whatever she's taking on. We'll have our weekly check-ins that we do with all of the student athletes, and she's just so amped to tell me about the next project that they're going to take on, or the way that they're increasing their communication, things like that. And I could go on and on. We have Jenna Timmerman is involved with the Student Alumni Association here at Lewis and Clark. This year, we have Kate Kimbrough, who steps up into many leadership opportunities this year, especially being with FCA. So yeah, I mean, I think that they take on this idea of immersing themselves fully and excelling in whatever they're doing, not just simply kind of cruising by their 4 years, but really, really, putting in a lot and then taking out a lot of that experience.
Yeah, it really is neat to see everyone that's involved. And we'll post a link. For instance, you mentioned Hawaii Club. We talked to Melho Omanavanui and Kayla Valdez last spring about Hawaii Club because it was right about that time Luau was supposed to take place. And if there's not a marquee event like Luau, I mean, I don't know what it is on campus. So you can see that leadership throughout your roster. Coach Hayes, I was so excited to see your team out on the floor this fall. So eager to see them out in the spring. It'll be interesting to see how things go, and we'll keep you updated on the website. But certainly appreciate you updating us on things about volleyball on the show today. Appreciate your time on lcpioneers.com live.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
That's head coach Emily Hayes of volleyball. That's a perfect case in point, building champions. And I talked about the 4 areas of that philosophy that Director of Physical Education Athletics Mark Petrock turns to when you look at what Lewis and Clark athletics means to the campus community. And that's the areas in which most of our teams, you can find, shining examples of certain areas, but then you can find holistic examples too throughout the roster. And that happens on many of our teams. And volleyball is just one that happens to have those student athletes in leadership positions, as she talked about with Hawaii Club and SAC and student alumni all over the place. It was really neat to hear. Izzy Arteaga is a perfect example, and she's been so helpful for our purposes with PioStream and athletic communications, getting the word out about events and being one of those reliable student athletes to, if you need volunteers for something, that she's going to help you and find others to help you too, as a perfect example. And then, as I mentioned with Kayla, that interview, as soon as we go to commercial, I'll be sure to share, because that was a fun look into Hawaii Club and all the effort that they put into a lot of their aspects on campus, including the luau. And hopefully we'll have the opportunity to have that coming up this spring. So big thanks to Coach Hayes for joining us. And we have one more interview coming up this week. We'll talk to Christine Eliazo tomorrow. She is a former Lewis and Clark women's tennis student athlete who helped the Pioneers to a 2016 Northwest Conference championship, a member of the class of 2018, now working in the medical field. So a chance to catch up with her and see what she's doing, tennis and beyond after leaving Palatine Hill. And then already have a couple of our interviews scheduled for next week. We are planning to have 4 live shows Tuesday through Friday of next week. We'll have Matthew Seimer of golf, men's golf, and Chris Fonts, the head coach of swimming and the director of aquatics as well at Lewis and Clark. So it'll be fun to have another week worth of shows, catch up with people, see how everything is going for those individuals on campus and wherever they may be as well. So certainly excited to have you join us for that. We'll have Christine tomorrow at 11:30 on lcpioneers.com live. And once again, reminder, on Sunday at noon, our first PioStream watchback, as we have members from the Lewis and Clark women's soccer program joining us to look back at the double overtime victory over Willamette last October. Excited to catch their thoughts on that. It's going to run probably around 90 minutes at the most. So certainly join us on Facebook Live as well as PioStream. It may be available in a couple of other places as well. For Coach Hayes to join us, for you for watching, I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us on this Thursday. We'll talk to you again tomorrow for more lcpioneers.com live. And please check us out on YouTube for all of our past shows. You can watch them on demand. Until we talk to you again tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
We invite you to join us.
It's time to explore Lewis and Clark.
Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts. Because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.